All Indiana Politics
is your premier source for Indiana politics.
Focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. An Indiana lawyer who worked in the Reagan White House has endorsed Kamala Harris for president. Peter Rusthoven was an associate counsel to President Ronald Reagan. He's one of a dozen former Republican White House lawyers backing Harris. He sat down with our government reporter Garret Bergquist to explain why.
Joining us now is former White House associate counsel Peter Rusthoven. Peter, thank you for coming in today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So you're one of a dozen former White House lawyers who worked in Republican administrations and have endorsed Kamala Harris for president. What led you to that?
I think that one of the things you learn working in the White House, and one of the things I think Americans just learn, is that a character is far more important than where you stand on any tax issue, any economic issue. And in this case, I agree with, candidly, a number of former Donald Trump cabinet officers, as well as his vice president, that he's manifestly unfit for office. And therefore should not again hold that office. One of the things that distinguishes us, distinguishes this country from other parts of the world. But one thing until 2020 we could claim was we always had the peaceful transfer of power. And any president who tries to fight the peaceful transfer of power, who incites others to end up storming the Capitol, and in an incident where 5 people lost their lives, to my mind, should never again hold the office of President of the United States.
How did this group endorsement come about?
Oh, I think many of us know each other and have talked about it and share the same views, not identically on every issue, but we're all pretty much conservatives. That's why we worked in those administrations. If you want to talk tax policy or size, what the size and scope of government should be, that's why I've been for Reagan since I've been for Reagan since he gave a speech in 1964 for Barry Goldwater when I was not even in my teens. But we share those views. But the other view we share is the one I just tried to articulate, which is a deep love for the country, a recognition that whatever our differences with those in another party or on a particular policy issue, we share a commitment to fundamental rules of decency, the rule of law, and democracy. And in talking about it, I just decided, at some point you take a stand. And whether our stand is particularly important or not, if it affects anybody to know that people who worked for Ronald Reagan, people who work for George H.W. Bush, people who work for George W. Bush, who have profoundly conservative political views, believe that it's far, far more important that the person we elect as president be someone who will accept the results of elections and someone who will not attempt to overthrow them, and that we get back to what we used to be as a country and, candidly, what we used to be as a Republican Party.
In trying to keep Donald Trump out of the Oval Office, though, why endorse someone whose track record and whose policy proposals are, frankly, at cross purposes with the ideals of pre-Trump conservatism?
What's more important? That's what it comes down to. What's more important for what we are as a people, and where we move on from here? One of these two individuals is going to be President of the United States come January of 2025. It is, to use the term, it's a binary choice. It's him or it's her. Which of them do you believe is better for the country? Is either of them disqualified by reasons of character and integrity? I mean, the answer for her, she's not disqualified by reasons of character and integrity. She is a center left, and maybe even leans a little more left than she does center. But she's going to accept the results of the election. She is not going to do something fundamentally irresponsible in terms of the core values of the country, which have to do with respecting opponents, respecting the results of elections. You know, and candidly, if you listen to her campaign, she's not the one who was doing things like calling names or, you know, I mean, good heavens, let's just talk about how we want our children to behave. You have a former president, candidate for president, who says things like, "I'm better looking than she is." Seriously? This is how you talk if you want to be president of the United States? You have, if you read the things he posts on Twitter, now X, if you read the things he says in speeches, he will say in the course of weeks things that throughout our history would have disqualified anyone else from serving in the office. I recognize that people have very strong feelings about this, and that's fine. And I think we should respect people whose views differ from our own. But at some level, we have to have a consensus about the sort of baseline character, integrity, trustworthiness of the person who holds that office. And if anyone has demonstrated candidly that he is about himself, I'm not even sure on the issues that we describe as differences between Republicans and Democrats, it's not clear to me that he really has any deep personal convictions. He has been all over the lot, for example, on an issue about which I care, which is protection of unborn life, you know, and he's now moving away from that yet again. I don't think anyone can candidly look at him and deny what they see.
But why support someone like Kamala Harris, who, as I mentioned earlier, is at essentially philosophical cross purposes with traditional conservatism, instead of a different candidate, such as, say, the Libertarian candidate, Chase Oliver?
The Libertarian candidate you just mentioned is known to a fraction of the people who live in the United States of America. He is not going to be the next president of the United States. I mean, you face up to in life, you face up to the choices that are in front of you. Those of us with children know that you will hear someone say, "Well, why is this so? Why can't it be this?" And and the response, I hope as a responsible parent, is because that's not your choice. It is going to be A or B. You have the responsibility to choose. You have the responsibility to make that choice in a responsible way. One of these two people is going to be president of the United States. One of them, in my judgment, is manifestly unfit. That judgment is shared by people who worked with him in his cabinet and in the White House. He is manifestly unfit. I disagree with her on any number of issues. Issues that used to be the most important things in our politics. Now the most important thing in our politics is, do we share a commitment to the rule of law? Do we share a commitment to the peaceful transfer of power? Do we share the understanding that character is the most important thing for anyone who bears that solemn trust and responsibility? Maybe when I was younger I got spoiled because I worked with a person who, whatever you thought of him, everybody knew he was sincere, he was decent, he was well motivated, and he had personal character. His name was Ronald Reagan. Biggest blessing of certainly my career to have a chance to work with him. But I cannot support, in my conscience, I cannot support someone who is unworthy of that office and threatens all kinds of danger to the fundamental things on which this country was built.
All right, coming up, a down-ballot candidate says voter awareness is one of her biggest campaign obstacles. We find out how severe that problem is. Welcome back. Down-ballot candidates tell us many voters don't even know about the races they're running in. News 8's government reporter Garret Bergquist found out just how serious the problem is.
Candidates everywhere are going door to door as we enter the final stretch of this election cycle. Sometimes those door knocks turn educational.
Hi, my name's Stephanie Yoakum, and I'm out and about introducing myself. I'm actually running to be your next state representative.
Yoakum says she's already done this about 4,000 times this election.
So nice to meet you. Thank you for voting.
She says as many as half of the people she talks to don't even know there's a state house race this year.
And if they do know, they may still not know who their state rep is. And so that's the main reason I'm out here, is to introduce myself. You know, a state rep, the goal is to represent your district.
That shows up in voting returns. Political scientists say nationwide, up to 25% of voters who fill out ballots don't fill out the down-ballot races. There's even a name for this phenomenon, roll-off.
Candidates across the ballot see it because when they look at the number of voters who actually voted in their races compared to the top of the ticket, they do see that sizable difference, not because they're in a smaller district, but also because a smaller percentage of people made a choice.
Benyon says that's a problem because the down-ballot races are just as important as those for the president and Congress.
The state legislature determines whether you have access to things like abortion, guns, certain kinds of education, and also health care. Those are really important things that affect people's daily lives, and those are decisions made by the state legislature, not by the president of the U.S., and generally not by Congress.
She says between now and Election Day, plan out when and where you'll vote. Look up who is running in your area and research them.
I think the most important thing is that their voice really does matter. Last session, there were races that were within 200 votes. And so every single person coming out, their vote really matters, especially in the down-ballot races where the districts are so much smaller than when you think about the entirety of the United States.
Yoakum says the act of researching and talking to candidates is as important as voting itself.
I've knocked on doors and ended up in a conversation with folks who have said that they probably won't vote for me because I'm not on the party ticket that they typically vote for, but we still end up having really positive conversations.
You have until October 7th to register to vote. We've made it easy for you to both check your voter registration and see who is on your ballot. Take out your phone and scan the QR code on your screen. That will take you to the As Seen On section of our website. I have included a link to the Secretary of State's voter information portal in the article for this story. In Fishers, I'm Garret Bergquist for Wish TV, wishtv.com, or follow us on Facebook for updates.
All right, coming up, Indiana's best political team on Harris's endorsements and a new lawsuit over IU's campus expression policy. And welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in two members of Indiana's best political team, Republican Mario Masalamani and Democrat Ariel Brandy. Good to see you both. Let's begin with that interview we heard at the beginning of this show with Peter Rusthoven. Mario, we'll start with you here. Some Republicans broke with Trump, as you know, 4 years ago as well. Are we looking at a repeat of 2020?
So in full disclosure, I've worked with Peter Rusthoven at Barnes & Thornburg. Great guy, great attorney. The problem that I have is, Peter is one of the half of 1%ers, right? So he doesn't understand the plight of the American people, that they're having a hard time paying their bills. They can't put food on their tables. They can't make their car payment. Peter doesn't have that problem. But many people are resonating with Donald Trump, especially the lower and the middle class people, because this Biden-Harris economy is killing the American dream. People are not able to afford things. Cost of living has gone up. People can't afford to buy their first houses. They're living with their parents still. I do criminal defense law. We have so many people coming in to our office talking about the fact that they can't pay their bills. They're struggling. They're barely living paycheck to paycheck. And that's the last 4 years of the Kamala Biden administration. And we need Donald Trump because, if past is a prologue, we saw what Donald Trump did in 4 years. The economy was booming. People had money. People were spending that money, and people's lives were better. The economy was so much better, and we had no issues really in foreign policy. Right now, we're helping out with two different wars, one in the Middle East, one in Ukraine. That wasn't occurring during Donald Trump's administration. And the Kamala Biden administration, if she gets reelected, will be another 4 years that this American public cannot and survive through.
Ariel, I'll let you respond to all of that. Also, how well do voters, from a political standpoint, respond to cross-party endorsements like these?
I mean, I don't think that people are necessarily always paying attention to these cross-party endorsements. I think at this point, we've dealt so much in the political system of voting for the lesser of two evils. I think at this point, when we're looking at the American people, yes, we're looking at how bad they're struggling in the economy, all of those things. But at the end of the day, it is basic decency, how we're talking to each other when we're on the public stage, especially in national politics, and how we're upholding the law and democracy. We've seen that blatant disrespect from Donald Trump and how he has acted towards Vice President Kamala Harris during this race. And I think that's something that turns people completely off from politics. They want to see something different. The guest talked about accepting the results of the election, plain and simple. The passing of power. Those are things that people are looking at and want to be able to see. And we've seen that overthrown and not done from Donald Trump.
Let me push back 1 second here. I mean, this is nothing new with Donald Trump. I mean, this is we know this guy. We know what you're going to get, right? This is not new stuff here. This is who he is.
Yeah, and I think people want to be able to see different. I think, we have been able to see Republicans speak up and say he has not met the expectations of what I thought was supposed to be a leader at this level or what I thought that I was going to see in my party. Yeah. Even at the DNC, we were seeing Republicans come to the national convention talking about their experiences and why they chose to be alongside us in the national stage, even on the ads talking about their experiences of being in the Republican Party and how Donald Trump is not the leader that they want to lead this country.
Right.
Phil,
go ahead quickly,
really quickly.
And then we'll move on. Go.
If you want to pick somebody that's mean, then Donald Trump's not the person, or that's not mean. Donald Trump's not the person to pick, right? But what Donald Trump has proven in the last 4 years is that he made sure that gas prices were low. Housing prices were low. Yeah. He made sure that we were drilling, and the drilling allowed for low fuel costs, which allowed for production of goods and services to become cheaper, which allowed for the American economy to be more vibrant and thrive. Yeah, he was mean, but guess what? Our foreign enemies never dared to threaten or to go against him because of the fact that he even told them, you dare to come after us, we'll come after you tenfold. Right. And so, yes, Donald Trump is mean, but this is not a mean or popularity contest. Right. This is on who's going to get the job done, and Donald Trump's that person.
Well, we'll see what happens on Election Day there. Hey, Indiana University's new campus-free expression policy now faces a lawsuit from the ACLU. This comes as faculty there demanding protections from the state's intellectual diversity law. Ariel, you first on this. University officials say the law does not prevent researching or teaching about diversity, equity, and inclusion, or even related topics. So are the faculty fears kind of overblown here?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we're seeing even in our own state legislature, the censoring, the book banning, the not wanting to talk about certain subjects in the classroom. I mean, we should have known it was going to trickle into higher education too at this point, if it's also coming from the Supreme Court and how we were, overturning the fact that, affirmative action isn't something that we can have anymore in this country. So I don't think they're overreacting. I think what we're running into is a complete infringement on the First Amendment right of being able to have free speech. If you're a student and you can't even walk on campus between the hours of, 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. with a T-shirt that says something that you're aligned with, or organizing on campus, organizing is the backbone of this country. Right. It is how so many of these movements have been built for the democracy that we have today. So restricting students in an environment where they should be learning, exercising those rights and being able to do so, it's restrictive.
11 p.m. does seem kind of early, especially for college students. Hey, Mario, I'll let you weigh in as well. Also, will the lawsuit hold up in court? Keep in mind, I want to get to one more question. I have about a minute and a half left.
I don't think the lawsuit's going to hold up in court. Here's the thing. There's got to be a fine balance between the freedom of speech and the freedom of education. Right? The school is trying to allow for these kids who have paid good money to be educated. We saw from the last protests approximately a year ago how they were basically shutting down the school, and protests were causing for kids to be in schools and classrooms to be disrupted. So, IU is trying to find a fine balance between allowing people to have freedom of speech, but also the freedom of education to allow for people to be educated in their public schools. And so that, I believe, is a tough job. And they're trying to do the best they can. And I think that there are going to be some snags until they find a policy that fits and accomplishes both.
We'll see what happens with that. Indianapolis Mayor, guys, Joe Hogsett finally answering questions. I have 30 seconds left. Want to get your take on everything that happened with that situation over the week. Ariel, 15 seconds to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, not answering questions enough for me. I mean, we're seeing some policies being implemented, but it's not enough, Joe. We got to do more, and we have to be able to answer what these women are asking for and the demands.
Mario,
and meeting.
it seems like you agree. You're shaking your head in agreement.
You know, Ariel and I agree, and that's how we're going to continue on this Labor Day weekend, because this is 2024. These women should not go through the type of harassment that they went through. Yeah. There should be policies and procedures in place. Indianapolis is the largest city in the state of Indiana. We need to do a better job. Joe Hodgson needs to do a better job.
Well, we will leave it right there, guys. Have a good Labor Day. We will talk to you soon. Thank you very much. We will be right back. All right. Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. We'll be back here next Sunday, of course, at 9:30 in the morning. And be sure to tune in at 11 o'clock for The Hill Sunday with Chris Steyerwalt. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.